Welcome back to the Gaming X. Over on the channel we have our review live right now for Monster Energy Supercross 3 on the Nintendo Switch. I'm going to link that video at the end, but we also have our breakdown of the series on Switch. That's the first game, the second and the third. Now the graphics, gameplay, all that good stuff has changed over the years. Now though, let's take a look at how it compares to the Xbox One version. Remember to hit that subscribe button, we really do thank you for all of the support we've received recently. Hit like, leave us a comment with your thoughts below, and let's get this started. Okay, so starting with the intros, I honestly don't care about these. I skip them nearly every time, but straight off looking at them, the lighting engine is gorgeous on the Xbox. Overall though, I don't think the Switch is too far behind. Yeah, you got weaker fire effects, fireworks, lens flares gone entirely, but who really watches these anyway? I mean, anyone? When it comes to the rider introductions, you can see we just missed some of the artistic elements, the blurred background, the smoke around the rider, but again, I think Switch is actually pretty solid here. Bit of pixelation, nothing crazy, and the models are awful on both. Look at those faces, stuff of nightmares. Into the racing, and it's a pretty immediate difference here. Sharpness is one thing, but look at the detailing on the jerseys over on the Xbox. I mean, just look at everything. The detail is crazy. This game's just a beast on the Xbox for visuals. Now, as we go through that first turn, you'll notice that the visuals do sharpen up on the Switch side of things. It seems it's just like it takes that first turn for things to warm up for the Switch edition. I've got a feeling that's a sacrifice to keep the solid frame rate, and if that is the case, honestly, I think it's a fair trade-off. The first game actually suffered really badly from slowdown, and that sucked in a game where frame rate is everything, especially on that first turn, so I really do appreciate how good this one runs. It's not struggling at all to keep up with the Xbox. Now, like the last two entries though, do notice the lower racer count. 12 races on the Switch compared to 22 on the Xbox. The whole experience, because of this, on the Xbox, I will say, it feels more intense, more exciting, obviously just more realistic generally. I don't know why, I say it every year, I feel like the Switch could easily handle 22 riders, and that's purely an optimization thing, but I do really want to see it added at this point. We can't keep on getting half the package in that sense. I think that's a fair request, and at this point that's my big one for Monster Energy Supercross 4. Okay, let's take a closer look into these graphics. First off, colours. Things are considerably more vivid on the Switch side compared to the Xbox, but it's to a point where I've got to say it's not realistic. Last year, Monster Energy Supercross 2 was just kind of crazy. At times it looked like a cartoon, to the point where even the riders had like a black outline around them. So I do think they've done a better job this year of kind of balancing it out somewhere between 1 and 2. But I will say it's far from natural, and it's definitely far from perfect. Okay, so shadows on the Switch, we got rid of the majority of popping first of all. That's a big win. But look at those solid blacks in comparison to the washed out realism over on the Xbox side. I know that's a limitation of hardware, no doubt, but it just jumps out to me for some reason. Looking at the bike, so you know, the riders, the animations, it all seems to be intact. It seems to be identical on both sides. I think what they've done here with this game is they actually obviously sat down and they chose what we need to really focus on for the Switch build, and I think they made some really smart moves. To give you an example of this, on the Switch, if you look at the crowd in the background in the stadium, it's actually quite a bit smaller when it comes to head count, but it's not obvious. When I was playing the game, to be honest, I didn't even notice, and I think that's obviously a power issue. Again, the Switch probably can't handle that size of crowd, but it makes total sense. We still get a big enough head count here that it represents, you know, the big deal of this event, and that's all I can really ask for. And honestly, you know, take that power and put it on the track. I think we would all agree with that. Track wise, it's more, if anything, of a colour thing. Looking at the detail, they actually look relatively similar to me, and the improvement on the Xbox side, if anything, is probably going to be down to that lighting engine. The shadows on the track, you know, behind the jumps, they just kind of add to the scale of things just a little bit, and it makes things feel a little bit bigger and more intense when you're racing on it. So what are we missing on the track? That's the big question, and I've got to say, there's not too much, honestly. That's what I find actually most impressive about the Switch build here. This is probably the closest it's been for all three versions of the game. Yes, of course, it's downscaled, downgraded, but they've got most things in here. Look at the track, look at the detail, look at the little bumps in the mud, they're kind of all there in place. Yeah, they might not be quite as sharp or visually as impressive, but they're there nonetheless. Looking at it though, I will say I do notice 2 or 3 things that are pretty obvious. The first 2, dirt kicking up from your back tyre, and then the tyre marks in the track itself. This to me is actually a big miss, purely because we actually got it in the second game at a much higher level on the Switch. Here they seem to have kind of pulled back a little bit. I really like this effect because it hid a lot of the clipping that you will see from the back tyre on the track, especially on corners. Just look on the Switch version when we take a turn and you'll see that wheel going through the ground. That same thing then though goes for our opponents. There's no real tyre marks, no real dirt kicking up. And that sucks because I feel like it really helps us feel like those opponents are on the track alongside us. You know, they're not just kind of floating above it. It kind of, yeah, I suppose if that makes sense. Last up, my favourite thing about the Xbox version, it's actually the motion blur. At first I thought the Xbox was actually a faster version of the game, but side by side, they are identical. The Xbox though, as I say, it has this kind of cool ass motion blur behind the bike, behind the rider, and it gives you that kind of faster sense. Let me freeze both of these screens here so you can take a look. Look at the track, the stadium, the back of the bike. The only real focus point we have is the rider, and then the top half of the bike itself. It's a cool effect, honestly. It really does add to the experience of being on the bike going at a high speed, because that's kind of what I imagine you would see, I guess. So graphically speaking though, overall it's a big upgrade for the Switch. Animations seem near identical. You've seen me whipping this bike all over the place. We've had no issues at all. And then the sacrifices we have made are honestly, in my opinion at least, so I can play this on the go, worth it. If I could change the colour of the whole thing, that would probably be my first fix, you know, just calm it down a little bit. But that's about it right now. Yeah, you know, these motion blurs and these other bits and pieces, they're nice touches, but not absolutely necessary. For me though, keep these graphics and start focusing now on 22 riders on the track. I will be very happy. The big problem for me though, and the reason I stick to Xbox, let me show you, it's a restriction of the controller, the Joy-Cons, the Pro Controller. They don't have analog triggers, meaning it's full speed or nothing. There's no in between. You can't like gently push it halfway to go a half speed. It means for this you're constantly hitting that brake trigger, which isn't ideal for a game where kind of lining up speed with the sections is the overall idea. I tried this with the GameCube controller because that does have that feature. I use it on Trails Fusion, I think it's called, but that don't work either for some reason. That's why I go for the Xbox build. Look how slow I'm going here. That's not because of the brake, but I'm just slightly pushing the trigger. For me, it makes the Xbox version a much more kind of skill-based version of the game. Okay, so onto the rain track, and there's not too much to say, but I gotta say, this is where the Xbox really starts to kind of blow the Switch out the water. It's not awful or anything, but I think this is pretty much the most demanding this game gets, and you can see the corners they've very obviously cut to make this work. The big one, obviously that lighting engine again, the Xbox here just runs away with the quality there, and then the Switch, it kind of goes through phases of either really bright and almost realistic looking, then way too dark. There's very little balance, very little kind of in between. Basically, I think it's fair to say on the rain tracks you're going to get kind of hints of the game looking amazing before it takes like 10 steps back. Overall though, gameplay again is identical. You're going to feel that bike slipping, you're going to feel all the challenges of racing in this kind of weather. Yes, I think the graphics over the top are much weaker as well. You know, weather effects generally on the Xbox are much better. It's not that the Switch is bad, just basic. The second game actually had some like decent style to it, but here it's basically white lines going down our screen on the Switch, and with the Xbox, the angle of the rain changes, the speed, it's kind of faded and very saturated for realism as well. The Xbox just completely runs away with it. One real nice touch though on the Xbox, rainwater on the camera itself. I actually think that's realistic. I think if you see any sporting event, if the camera's out in the in the weather with these racers, with the players, it's going to end up on the camera lens as well. So it's a simple thing, but it's very much welcome. So that's it. I'll leave it there. Appreciate you joining us for this video. I'm going to leave you with the rest of the footage of this rain track here. Consider that subscribe button below. We appreciate the huge amount of support we've received recently. Let me know what you think of the difference in the comments. I'll link our reviews of Monster Energy 1, 2 and 3 at the end of this video as well. But with that, I'll see you all on the next Gaming X.